How will you support the EPS literacy plan through all levels of administration, teachers, and staff to make sure the district is teaching children to read?
So this is an appropriate question. I'm a reading specialist. I teach reading at Normandale Community College. Our strategic plan has as one of the pillars our literacy plan and our comprehensive literacy plan. I believe that one of the things that we are looking at is professional development with our teachers. I believe they're on board with this. I believe that some of the work that we have to do is making sure that we are teaching literacy the correct way early on, intervening when appropriate, and that is going to you're going to see an effect on a lot of different things. Our test scores because of that, you're going to see parent confidence, enrollment. I believe that our comprehensive literacy plan has a lot of legs to it, and we will see a lot of improvement across the district. So supporting our teachers in that work, listening to our teachers, bringing them to the table for this, and making sure that as a board member, we are keeping that as a key priority in our district.
All right, the next question will go to Owen Michelson first. What does equity in education mean to you, and how do you propose to support the needs of all students, including advanced learners, formerly known as gifted and talented?
I think for me, equity in education means that every child has an opportunity to get a quality education. And I think that means that we look at and we listen to what our students and our families are telling us. We invite them to the table. I'm not an expert on that. I think we also listen to our teachers. Our teachers are in the classroom and they are working on things and they are doing some things that are working well. I think we need to, as far as our talent development, we have continued to add choices and pathways for students. I know at the middle school where my kids attend, there's a lot of choice in terms of and encouragement from teachers. There's a thing called depth of knowledge that I can tell you about later in Mr. Heringa's class. All of our curriculum needs to be challenging. It needs to provide viewpoints. All of our students. I do this for a living.
And it's this. What is your goal for class sizes at every school level, and how do you propose the district reach those goals?
So class size is definitely a challenge in some areas of our schools. We want to be able to balance what is best for students, what is manageable for teachers, and budgeting constraints. It's not an easy task. All things being equal, a smaller class size is ideal. However, that isn't always the reality. With a variety of student needs coming into our classrooms, I would agree that finding solutions around how to reach each student when faced with a large class size is key. That may include earlier interventions, earlier diagnostics, more support staff, tutoring opportunities, and curriculum approach changes such as we're looking at in early literacy, early math.
Thanks. Now we'll have our second lightning round. Do you think mental health staff is adequate at all levels in early childhood programs and in schools?
No, I don't. And my backup question there is I've been the chair of the Ed Fund. We've been working on a mental health campaign to bring more mental health professionals into our schools.
Thanks. Now we'll move back to our regular format. If elected, what do you view as the role of the school board in the management of the school district, and how would you measure your success as a board member? So as an Edina school board member, I believe the board's role is to provide governance. Their job is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, and their job is to set the strategic plan. I think we measure success by measuring against the strategic plan. How well are we doing meeting the things that we say are priorities? I think we measure against the board goals that the board sets for our district. And I think we measure our superintendent based on the goals that together the superintendent and the board sets for her. I do want to say something. The board's job is not to set curriculum. That is not our job. And so we need to make sure that we stay in our governance lane and make sure that our roles are well defined in that. What is your understanding of critical race theory, and what is your philosophy on how it should or should not be incorporated into the curriculum? Karen Gabler. This topic of CRT has been given a lot of airtime throughout the national media. I think CRT is being used as a talking point to divide us
and is distracting us from where our attention should be, which is successfully implementing our strategic plan and making Edina Public Schools an even better place to be for all of our students. CRT is another term that has various definitions depending on who you talk to. To some, it's the study of how institutions such as housing or healthcare have different outcomes based on race. To others, it's a Marxist political movement designed to eliminate individualism. I've spent a fair amount of time in our classrooms and schools, and almost without exception, our teachers and staffs are true professionals, and I have no reason to believe they are pushing any hidden Marxist agenda. If we have individual incidents of teachers behaving unprofessionally, I do think that needs to be addressed immediately. I've talked with high school students in my neighborhood through my work with the Ed Fund, the ABC program, and prep for this forum, and they will tell you that it only comes up in organic discussions in their classrooms and their teachers are professional.
What ideas do you have for ensuring early childhood education supports the district's goals for students?
So I'm a huge proponent of early childhood education here in Edina. In fact, I was the PTO president at the Early Learning Center. As has been stated, the Early Learning Center is a gem for our community. A lot of people meet, you're a new parent, you meet people that then go off to all different schools. And when I was the chair of the levy, I was able to reach out to those people at those schools and say, hey, can I talk to you about this? I want your group to know about this. So relationships are built that strengthen our schools and strengthen our community. It helps to ensure that our kids are kindergarten ready, which is a big deal. We also have a chance to, our Early Learning Center has piloted what's called the Gold Standard Assessment, which is a benchmark of how they're making sure that kids are meeting those social and emotional benchmarks along the way. So I think it is an opportunity for us to invest in early childhood education. We might have to get creative with the funding to make sure that we can fully fund it the way that we want to, but I think it's an investment worth making.
On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is ineffective and 5 is effective, how do you rate the district's use of communication, and what, if any, changes would you make?
So I think communication in 2021 is difficult. The school district is trying to thread that needle between oversaturating parents with information and hitting the right mark in terms of getting them the information they need. And that can be a tricky balance to have sometimes. Communication cannot be understated. It needs to be proactive, it needs to be streamlined, it needs to be efficient and effective communication. I've seen improvements already this fall coming from our district. And I think I'm going to take a different avenue on this in terms of it's not only communicating with people in the district, but it's people outside of the district. 2/3 of Edina voters no longer have kids in the district. That means, and when we pass our levies at 70% or higher, we owe them information about what's happening in our schools. We want it to be a welcoming place for them too. So I think we can also do a better job of communicating with the general public about what's happening in our schools.
In your campaign for Edina School Board, will you accept or have you accepted any financial or other kinds of support from any political party or PAC with or without a direct donation to your campaign?
No, I will not seek, take, or partake in any partisan endorsement or forum, nor take money from a partisan group.
All right, now returning to the usual format of audience questions. This one will go to Nicole Schnell first. Please provide your thoughts on special education, IEPs, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the basic services offered for children with disabilities.
Special education is there's a vast continuum of needs and services within that, and I just want to say that and acknowledge that. And our special education numbers are growing. I would like to better understand why and trends in the categories, why we may be seeing that. It's true what Erica said. Advocacy for full state and federal funding for special education is important. We have been mandated since 1975 through the IDEA Act to provide a free and appropriate education, as we should be. However, here in Minnesota, state funding makes up about 40% of the cost, leaving the local school district to fund the rest. That has to change, and we need to use our collective voices as a community and school district to lobby for more federal funding for what we are required to provide.
I want to make sure that in our special ed, as Erica said, I just want to use this last 15 seconds to say the Unified has been, our program at Southview is going to be featured by National Special Olympics. They will be here filming in our schools because of the great programs we have here. So,
Did you support the recent technology levy held in the special election this past May? Why or why not?
so I was the co-chair of the levy, so yes, I supported that. And why? Because I understand the importance of that funding to our schools. It is kneecapping us if we are not funding our schools. And we are so great. I am so grateful for our community for always showing up and voting yes for our schools.
All right. Holding the school board election in an off year costs the district $100,000, in addition to the much lower voter turnout. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, the ultimate goal is to have as many people in the community vote in these elections. You know, sure, if I was a board member, I could look at this if this is what we really deem is the priority we need to be looking at. But as far as, you know, I wouldn't list this as one of my top 5 or 10 priorities that I would need to take on as a school board member.
All right, we have time for one last question before we move to closing statements. As a school board member, what interactions will you have with the teachers union?
So we have a history here in Edina of having a good working relationship with our teachers union. Some people would say that's a bad thing. I've worked in school districts where the administration and the teachers union do not have a good working relationship, and it isn't good. It's not good for kids. Our teachers in this district are true professionals, and our surveys show that our communities realize how valuable our teachers are. Our teachers deserve to have a seat at the table, a voice. Doesn't mean that everything that they say gets to happen, but it's a working relationship. They deserve to have a voice in our operations within our district, and I do think the idea that a good relationship with our teachers union is a bad thing is really backwards thinking.